For millions of British families, the council estate wasn't just where they lived, it was where modern Britain was built. Some estates became symbols of hope, others became symbols of decline. And near the end of this video is one political decision from the 1980s that led to more than 2 million council homes leaving public ownership, and many people believe Britain has never recovered from it. Because the story of the council estate isn't really about buildings, it's about what Britain believed ordinary people deserved. Here's the rise of the British council estate. 10. Britain's cities were once overcrowded and dangerous. Before council estates existed, huge numbers of working-class Britons lived in terrible housing. Entire families squeezed into tiny rooms, outdoor toilets, dam walls, shared water pumps. In cities like London, Liverpool and Manchester, overcrowding became severe during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Here's the shocking statistic. In some industrial parts of Britain during the early 1900s, infant mortality exceeded 15%. That meant more than 1 in every 7 babies died before their first birthday. Gradually, politicians realized Britain needed large-scale public housing, and after World War I, that pressure became impossible to ignore. Because returning soldiers expected something better, and Britain had promised it. 9. Homes fit for heroes. After World War I, Britain faced a serious housing crisis. Around 750,000 homes were needed almost immediately after the war. So politicians promised Homes Fit for Heroes. The Housing Act of 1919 gave local councils funding to build homes for working families. Suddenly, entirely new estates appeared across Britain. These homes often included things many families had never experienced before: indoor toilets, front gardens, separate bedrooms. For many working-class families, they felt luxurious. Here's an important fact. In the 1920s, millions of British homes still lacked indoor bathrooms or hot running water, so moving into a council house could completely transform daily life overnight. But the biggest expansion came after another war changed Britain completely. 8. World War II changed everything. By 1945, around 475,000 British homes had been destroyed or severely damaged during World War II. Millions of people needed homes urgently. This time, the government responded on a huge scale. Council estates expanded rapidly during the late 1940s and 1950s. New developments included schools, shops, green spaces, and community centers. The goal wasn't just shelter, it was building communities. Here's the remarkable statistic. Between 1945 and 1979, Britain built over 5 million council homes. At its peak, around 1/3 of the British population lived in council housing. And unlike modern stereotypes, council housing carried far less stigma. Teachers, nurses, and factory workers all lived there. But by the 1960s, Britain believed it could build even taller, because the future suddenly looked vertical. 7. The Tower Block Revolution. During the 1950s and 60s, Britain became obsessed with modern architecture. Concrete tower blocks rose rapidly across major cities. Politicians believed high-rise living represented the future, and councils could house huge numbers of people quickly. Here's the striking fact. By the late 1960s, Britain had built more than 3,000 tower blocks over 6 stories high. But problems soon appeared: poor construction, faulty lifts, isolation. Then came the disaster that shocked the country. In 1968, part of the Ronan Point Tower block in London collapsed after a gas explosion killed 4 people. And confidence in high-rise council housing began collapsing too. But despite criticism, estate culture itself became incredibly strong. 6. Council estates became communities. By the 1970s and 80s, council estates had developed strong identities of their own. Children played football between tower blocks. Neighbors knew each other closely. Families often lived near relatives for generations. And for many people, estates created fierce loyalty. Here's an important statistic. By 1979, around 6.5 million council homes existed across Britain. That made council housing one of the largest public housing systems in the world. And despite negative stereotypes, many residents still remember strong community spirit. But economically, Britain itself was beginning to struggle badly, and the political decisions coming next would change council housing forever. Because in the 1980s, Britain changed direction. 5. The right to buy revolution. In 1980, the government introduced one of the most important housing policies in modern British history, the right to buy scheme. Led by Margaret Thatcher, the policy allowed council tenants to buy their homes at discounted prices, and millions took the opportunity. Here's the staggering statistic. More than 2 million council homes were sold under right to buy. Supporters believed it created pride and opportunity. But critics argued something equally important. The homes being sold were not being replaced fast enough. In some years, Britain replaced fewer than 1 in every 10 council homes sold, which slowly reduced Britain's supply of affordable housing. At the same time, public attitudes toward council estates began changing too. 4. The media changed the image of estates. By the late 1980s and 1990s, television programs and newspapers increasingly portrayed council estates negatively. Crime, unemployment, violence, broken lifts. And gradually, council estates became associated with social decline in the public imagination. Here's the important fact. During the early 1980s, unemployment in Britain rose above 3 million people for the first time since the 1930s. Factories closed, mining jobs disappeared, and many estates suffered economically as a result. But despite the stereotypes, many people who grew up on estates still speak about them with enormous pride. Then, in the 1990s and 2000s, Britain tried to reinvent many estates completely. 3. Demolition and regeneration. By the late 1990s, some council estates had become heavily run down. Tower blocks began disappearing from British skylines. Entire estates were demolished, some rebuilt, others replaced entirely. Here's the remarkable statistic. Since the 1990s, Britain has demolished thousands of tower blocks and post-war flats. Supporters argued regeneration improved living conditions. But critics argued communities were being broken apart, and affordable housing was shrinking further. For many former residents, regeneration felt less like renewal and more like displacement. Meanwhile, estate culture became deeply embedded in British identity. 2. Council estates shaped modern British culture. It is almost impossible to understand modern Britain without understanding council estates. Because estates shaped music, comedy, television, football, and even language itself. Artists, actors, footballers, and musicians who grew up in council housing helped define modern British culture. From grime music in London to football culture in northern cities, estate life heavily influenced Britain's identity. Here's the fascinating fact. Without council estates, huge parts of modern British music, especially grime, simply would not exist. And despite decades of stereotypes, many people still describe growing up on estates as full of community spirit and belonging. But the biggest question facing Britain today is much simpler. Who can still afford to live there? 1. The housing crisis changed everything. Today, Britain faces one of its most severe housing crises in generations. House prices have risen dramatically, private rents continue climbing, and social housing waiting lists have become enormous. Here's the statistic that explains the scale of the issue. More than 1.2 million households are currently waiting for social housing in England alone, and many experts argue the roots of the crisis connect directly back to decisions made decades earlier, especially the large-scale sale of council homes without enough replacement building. Because Britain once treated affordable housing as essential infrastructure. Now, for many younger people, owning a home feels increasingly impossible. The average UK house price is now more than 8 times average annual earnings in many areas, and strangely, that has caused many people to look back at council housing very differently. Not as failure, but as something Britain may have abandoned too quickly. Because whatever people think about council estates, they shaped modern Britain permanently. The rise of the British council estate wasn't simply about buildings, it was about ambition, about class, about what ordinary people believed they deserved from society. And even now, the argument about council housing is really an argument about Britain itself. So now we're curious. Did you grow up on a council estate? And do you think Britain should build more council housing again? Let us know in the comments.